Hi, I'm Frances Katzen, and welcome to my podcast, The World of Real Estate. In this series, we will explore the world's largest asset class and how it plays out on a global scale. I am so excited and incredibly privileged to have Jeffrey Beers on our show today. Jeffrey Beers is one of those rare breeds that has, for the last 25 years, exceeded the standard of hospitality design. He's one of those creative types that somehow manages to thread the body of work from both a craftsmanship to a true artist, and yet elevates gathering spaces to another level. I have been so fortunate to work with Jeffrey in the context of a residential conversion at 108 Leonard. Jeffrey has melded effortlessly 1891 McKim Mead in White into the modern world. So welcome, and thank you for being here today, Jeffrey.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Francis, thank you so much for those beautiful, kind words. And it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to do this with you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Flattered.
Jeffrey, can you describe yourself to people?
I'll do my best. I'll try. I'd like to think that I'm sort of an eternal optimist. I enjoy life greatly. I'm a big sailor and a boater. I love to cook. I have certainly an open kitchen in my own home. I put two apartments together and designed a big open kitchen. It's very much how my family, I have two boys, they're in their late 20s now, but they just, it's been a very good family, strong unit. We have a house out in East Hampton. We're lucky enough that, and I keep a boat out in East Hampton.
Oh, wow. I love it.
I had a lot of opportunities as an architect, of course, but also as an artist and in the art world. You may or may not know, I've been a glass blower all my life. Dale Chihuly, I met.
I love Dale Chihuly's installations. They always look like being underwater. Wow, I did not know that. Where did you train for the glass blowing that you did?
Well, I was an architecture student at the Rhode Island School of Design at RISD. Mm-hmm. And in my sophomore year, Dale was head of the sculpture glass program there at the time.
Wow.
And we met each other. I would be up all night, of course, drawing till 3 a.m, architectural drawings, and a very rigorous program. But I would wander down into the glass lab. At the time, they were building a new building for the architecture. So they had my studio in the sculpture building. And I would wander into this glass lab, and there were just all sorts of the most creative, beautiful, beautiful things were being made there. I met Dale and Jamie Carpenter and all lovely, wonderful people.
What an amazing experience, because I actually am a big fan of Dale. He was birthing his concepts. They were revolutionary at the time. I mean, you definitely were lucky to be a part of that. That's an amazing opportunity.
Oh, I was. Francis, it was really amazing. I mean, we became very good friends, and I turned out to be a pretty good glass blower, and he would invite me to be on his teams, and we still remain very good friends today. But I grew up in Manhattan. I'm an only child. My parents traveled quite a bit when I was a teenager, so I had the opportunity to travel to Europe, quite honestly, and I think that exposed me greatly to the world of architecture and hospitality, of course, hotels.
So is that where your passion came from, in understanding how to transcend these open spaces and these sort of, communal spaces? Is that where the love came from the travel and seeing these lobbies and restaurants?
It did, very much so. I staying in, we had lovely opportunities in Rome and London, and certainly this was I'm going to date myself, but in the 70s here, where it was quite glamorous, traveling was a little different back then, and I remember the Hassler Hotel and very wonderful properties that I just took real note of. And of course, as an only child, I grew up pretty fast in New York. neither my dad was a cook. He enjoyed cooking, but we ate out a lot. They started taking me to restaurants when I was quite young, and I just fell in love with hospitality and restaurants. I um, worked in many of them and got to know chefs and restaurateurs. So
So hang on a second. So are you suggesting that you actually did some time as a younger fellow in a restaurant serving
I
up?
certainly did. I was a waiter. I was a busboy. I was a waiter. I was a bartender.
Wow, I
Oh
did
yeah.
this.
No,
Wow.
I know restaurants, as we say, from the inside out, from the back of the house, and it's been very beneficial to me. And obviously, I understand the planning of a restaurant, and chefs really appreciate that. They really know how to work with me and my team. Um, I've owned a number of them. I'm partners in many different restaurants over the years, so I also have to write the checks. So sort of, I understand the whole world of it, to be honest.
So you've really done the full gamut. So let's take a deep dive into how you created Jeffrey Beers International. That's a bit of a segue, but I would like to sort of understand the in between of that, if we might, after you respond to this question.
Sure, sure. I'll try. One of my later senior years at architecture school at RISD, Friedrich St. Florian, he was the dean of the architecture school, and Dale both
Mhm.
encouraged me strongly to apply for a Fulbright fellowship.
Ah, that's right. And
Um,
you got it.
yeah, I was awarded a
Amazing.
Fulbright to study architecture and the integration of art in architecture, and I lived in Rio de Janeiro.
Wow.
Um, and I had the opportunity to work for Oscar Niemeyer for a
That's
year.
quite a privilege too.
It indelible mark on my career. And I,
How old were you?
oh gosh, I was 24, 25,
Wow, what a
24,
great
maybe,
age to be in Brazil.
living
Wow.
in Rio. And I think it was 79. It was a lovely time. It was an amazing time in Rio. The life was just it was a good time. The people are
Hmm.
amazing. Brazilian people are just incredible. The music, the whole joie de vivre and life. It's just,
It's another world, isn't it? Hmm.
yeah, really amazing world. But then I realized I needed to really get back to real life, and I was lucky enough to work for IMPay. I, I,
Wow.
I really, my pursuit of my interest in glass in architecture continues, but I,
Interesting.
with Oscar, I learned a lot about sort of the artistic application. With IM Pei, it was about curtain walls and much more architectural, technical aspects of high-rise glass use in high-rises. I spent about 8 years at IM Pei's office, and
And you worked, sorry to interrupt, but you worked on the Raffles City complex in Singapore with him,
I
correct?
did. I did. I worked on Raffles. In fact, I did the restaurant on the roof. I did many of the lobbies. That was one of my first introductions into hotels and hospitality design. It really he for some I developed a real interest and flair for it and the materiality and lighting, and I am really saw that in me. So he gave me all the public spaces.
That's amazing.
Which was great. I mean, it really was.
Were you nervous on that project? Were you worried that it wouldn't come out? Were you triple checking everything?
Of course, it was a bit nerve wracking, and in fact, I returned from Singapore, being over there for a couple of months, getting the complex open, and I took a couple of 2 3 weeks. I was off vacation out in East Hampton, and I met a restaurateur. A friend of ours, mutual friend, introduced us. A gentleman by the name of Phil Scotty, who is a prominent restaurateur here in New York. And he asked me if I'd come in maybe to the city just on Monday and take a look at a space. It was a 33-foot wide by 200-foot long space.
Wow.
So he really didn't quite know what to do with it. And I said, Phil, we're going to build the longest bar in New York. We're going to build a bar that goes from Broadway to Mercer Street. This
Love
was
it.
between Houston and Bleecker. It was a full
Hmm.
block wide, east
Wow.
west, and So we built a 185-foot long bar. And it was my first restaurant called Bar Louis. Um, and that just took off. It got published in about 13, 14, 15 magazines around the world, and that led to China Grill, and
And
that
you
led
set.
to
Mm-hmm.
many other projects. And I formed the firm in the late '80s, and we're now about 60 folks.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and lots of I think there's oh 12 or 14 countries represented.
Really.
And people with all sorts of backgrounds. They're artists, they're architects, they're interior designers, they're apparel designers, they're painters, they're sculptors. It's a real lovely atelier or studio of very collaborative folks. We all of us just love each other's energy.
Well,
And
that's a testament to you too, Jeffrey, because I think coming from an artist's eye, you're able to appreciate and discern the brilliance of each type of aspect, and so it all sort of works for you and differentiates your product and outcome, I would imagine, with that type of dynamic.
thank you. It does, Francis. It does very much. In fact, I miss greatly in this, very challenging times we're in here, and
Yes.
all of what we've got to deal with here. But we're doing well, and we're handling everything on Zoom and all sorts of presentations that are my team, our teams, and WebExes. But I miss the creative energy of the studio. I must say, I miss the dynamics of how we work together. It's like a dance troupe or a
Yes.
theater. It's like a theater group. We all,
Feed off each other and get that energy
yeah.
going. Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
some ways, it's analogous to movie making too, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
having a cast and a director and a narrative, and I really enjoy it. I love how we work and the
Mm-hmm.
projects we work on.
Jeffrey, how would you describe the design of your city home, given that flavors from your worlds? How is that solidified in the design of your home?
It's a wonderful question, Francis. I mentioned earlier I purchased two apartments. I combined two apartments and reconfigured them to be very much my how we live, how my family lives. The kitchen, of course, is the center of the home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the whole entry sequence is that you enter really into sort of somewhat the kitchen, a foyer sort of public space. But then that bleeds out into the living room where we are lucky to have a lovely outdoor garden, a lot of windows, a lot of light, the kitchen being the center. And then I purposely sort of you can move to the left into sort of the more private wing, the bedroom wings, the bedroom areas. So um, it's a materials. I'm very fond of materiality. So
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of different walnuts and marbles
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
travertines that I have.
Beautiful.
Um, it's a really we've been here for maybe 12, 13 years, and it's been great. Thank you.
So, someone who has a place out east, I recognize the importance of getting out. And as a country house, you sort of always want to sort of take away the city edge. Would you say the house that you have out east is sort of showing off that architectural skill, if you will,
Yeah, I
as well?
well, I bought the house out east. We've done a fair amount of renovation to it, but it's not a house that I designed from ground up. It is, however, my wife and I fell in love with it immediately. I basically said, I'll take it.
Why? What sold
Well,
you?
it's such an indoor outdoor house. We
Love that.
the
Mm-hmm.
glass. There's a 2-story living room,
Mm-hmm.
all floor to ceiling glass. So
Beautiful.
they're 25-foot high ceilings with glass windows overlooking all the trees and the landscape. I'm not on the ocean by any means, but we have a beautiful view of nature. The house is an extremely indoor outdoor house. Um, the outdoor cooking areas and the kitchen areas flow into the living spaces again. Um, and it's a very easy house to certainly be in nature. in part of the outdoors.
Beautiful. Sounds magical.
Thank you. No, we enjoy it. I spend as much time as I can honestly out there.
I'm going to throw you off with a question that I may not have mentioned, but I wanted to ask in today's landscape, do you think the same opportunities are available to designers and architects such as yourself in today's climate? Or do you feel that that was a rare time where you were exposed to such, creative sort of masters of their own forum?
Yeah, very good question, Francis. I actually would have to say the latter. It was certainly in the design of restaurants. The original masters, I mean, obviously Adam Tahani is a good friend of mine, and one of the, but
Oh,
Sam Lapata was a,
mhm.
God bless him, he passed away. Just an incredibly talented restaurant designer, but from Dale to the chefs, the emerging new chefs, from Wolfgang Puck to the original sort of star chefs. The creative energy just seemed to be, and the daringness in the 90s.
Mm.
There was a lot of daring and
Love
bold
that
kind of.
word, daring. Love that.
Yeah, today it's fine. I actually think it's swinging back.
Do you?
I think we're headed back to that sort of more daring. I think
Why do you
everybody.
say that?
Well, I just think it's so driven, of course, by budget and schedule, and all the various partners in projects, and investors, that it's gotten a little bit driven by almost like how this, the it's all automated now in Wall
Mm,
Street. I mean, it's
hmm
computers making decisions.
mm.
And I think that the industry, even when I speak to clients and owners, they're yearning for some sort of boldness, a new,
Freshness, new.
fresh,
Mm.
bold, more artistic, more emotional. I have a term I use called emotional modernism.
I love
And
that.
yeah, it's kind of become the ethos of the firm.
I love that.
We all really appreciate materiality so much, and warrant lighting. Lighting is an
It's huge.
incredibly important component in not only hospitality but certainly residential. I mean, it's the lobby. It's very important, and I think there's a tremendous amount of emotion that comes. Modernism is really timeless. It's timeless design. It's
Well
you
said.
know a proper attention to proportion and sort of the
Correct.
basic classic principles of design. But if you bring the emotional component to it, I think it enriches it greatly.
100%. It gives it a gravitas. Now, that would be an interesting segue for me to ask you about how the transition into a residential space. It's a very different uh, end result, right? You are creating the level of intimacy that goes into the residential that may not be as needed in a restaurant.
I certainly had been interested in doing private residential projects, from apartments, and I've done a few townhouses and even a residence, two of them out in East Hampton, but a high rise.
Do you find it fulfilling to do residential?
I do. I've become very. I find it very fulfilling, certainly to get to know the family, and the family, and how the family works, the dynamics of it, and
Right.
if I can participate in bringing that family unit closer together. Um, in fact, it's something now we're talking about now hugely. The idea of obviously homeschooling, but working from home, and
Yeah.
I do think this is a very important conversation. My sons used to do all their homework on the kitchen island. I
Yep.
mean, of course, they would go into their bedrooms when they wanted to, but a lot of times they would do it on the island or in various parts of the house. I think that the formal dining room maybe is something that might be reconsidered a little going forward. That
Hmm. What do
if
you
there
mean
is,
by that?
well, I think that space could be better utilized, and it can be a flexible space that somehow could act as a dining room. But I think certainly in dual family working spouses, two working spouses, that we all need the ability to be able to. I don't think this is going away. In principle, I mean, of course, I hope we all um, will get through this and we'll get through it all together. But
I
I
know.
think the notion of working from home is something that is not that will become a necessity.
Much more accepted. I think it was very threatening to many companies, which I now think they are, reorganizing that idea.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's. I think actually, I mean, when you asked the beginning of the question, I was sort of tapped on and asked one of my first tall residential project, One West End in Manhattan.
Ah, yes.
It was the
Very big success.
hospitality. Yeah, they wanted my sort of sense of hospitality and public space design,
Hmm.
certainly for the amenity areas, but they also took note of how many open kitchens, many restaurants we've done with open kitchens, and I know how to design a kitchen pretty
Hmm.
well. And
Yes, you do.
I've learned a lot from all the chefs that I've met over the
Hmm.
years, from
Hmm.
um, Danielle Ballou to Bobby Flay. I mean, everybody has given me certain little tricks and how you plan a kitchen. It's somewhat
That's so helpful because
very
people
helpful.
miss it. So many people miss the details of that.
They do. And certainly at 108 Leonard, that was an incredibly, the kitchens are all open kitchens basically. And
They're gorgeous and they're
they're,
so well laid out.
thank you. They're laid out really well. I'm very proud of how they're laid out. I gave a lot of thought to that. The team that worked on it was very restaurant experienced. So we're very pleased with that.
I remember being blown away that the one bedrooms had a hot and cold auto water purifier. I remember being blown away by this beautiful, simple marble shelf on the backsplash so that you could put your salt and pepper shaker there. Where
Exactly.
most people are like, where, everyone's fine. Where are they? Where are they? And they're right there. You know.
Exactly. Thank you, Francis. Yes, that was little tricks like that. I think Danielle Ballou sort of encouraged me on that one a little.
And I love the fact that you match the color of the cabinets with the original color of the facade of the building from 1891.
Exactly. That was very
Talk
important
about
to.
really brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. We really wanted to obviously respect the integrity of the building. It's such a McKim Mead and White, beautiful example of Italian Renaissance. But from the interior standpoint, I wanted to nod to that from a proportion and the trim, with the way we've sort of paid respect and homage
Ah,
to the
those
building,
beautiful moldings. They were
but
amazing.
also bring it to a modern sensibility, so that there is there is a modernism about the interiors that purposely contrasts the richness of the building.
You definitely achieved that, Jeffrey. I mean, the details of doing a herringbone stone lobby flooring with a cove lighting certainly depicts that emulsifying factor of bringing the old and the new together.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you. It's an amazing project, actually.
What
The
would you say was the
lobby.
most, sorry,
No. The lobby was. We just wanted to be, just restored, original beauty, but juxtaposed with real modern insertions. And as you said, the flooring, the reception desk, and the floor to ceiling cast glass accent, lighting features. It's sort of a modern interpretation of what that building represented at the time when it was built.
it really does. I mean, the amount of painstaking restoration that was done by Allard to recover those original brass details by removing hundreds of years of paint was extraordinary.
It
And
was extraordinary. Absolutely. No, it was.
what would you say was the most challenging project you've ever worked on?
Oh boy. I would say there's maybe not one. They all come with their unique challenges. We actually
That
finished
was
a
very
year.
politically correct.
We yeah, well, they all do. No matter, certainly. I guess about a year ago we finished. We were appointed to do the third Atlantis resort, a much more modern looking resort. It's not the example of the Bahamas or in Dubai. God
Got
bless
it.
Saul Kersner. I worked for many years, and
Hmm.
but this is in China, in Sanya, China, and HOK designed the building originally. BDGM, subsequently bought by HOK, but the building is a much more modern building, and yet the interiors are very theatrical. They're extremely and working in China and certainly sourcing things and sourcing locally, not only materials but vendors and craftsmen, and that gets a little challenging.
There's a
Um,
lot of people to manage. Yeah. Would
it's a
you say
lot of
you're good at
people.
managing it people? You're good at managing people?
I am. I think I've been told I'm a good manager, actually. Well, it's not easy. It takes it obviously. We all are tasked with that of being patient and being encouraging. I think it's very
Mm-hmm.
important to, you know, stay on the positive and try and bring
Mm-hmm.
out the best in people. I mean, whoever I work with, I try and see where they can have a place at the table where they can make the experience and bring their energy and their talent. I think that's what makes a successful project in the end, whether it's residential or hospitality. It's really about the group of folks that envision the project in the first place. Curate the talent from architects to interior architects to all the way down to the artists and the craftsmen and the contractors and the builders. Um, it's a big production. It's like putting a theatrical show or a movie together, something like that.
It's certainly a gift, Jeffrey. It's certainly a gift. So, so if you're not working, what are you doing right now? But I'm assuming you are, based on what you're telling me.
Yeah, no, we're working. We're working. Certainly very. In fact, well, I think everybody's working even a little harder than
Harder,
anyone ever has. It's amazing. The computer is just so
nonstop.
important, and from the Zooms to the WebExes to the
Hmm.
presentations, and
Hmm.
um, but I have a house, as I mentioned, in East Hampton, so I
Hmm.
spend time out there. I will come back into Manhattan for a few days just to take care of obviously obligations and some things, but
So
most
you're
of my
really out there predominantly now, for the
trying to
most
be.
part.
We
Yeah,
have
got
for the
it.
last couple of months. Yes, my family is out there. My two sons,
Hmm.
they're 28 and 24, and one of my older son is a developer. He works for a developer, so he's able to do his thing, and my other son is in finance, so he's able to work also. So it's nice that we're all together out there
That
for
is
sure.
really nice. That's
No, it's
very
lovely.
rare.
It's
In the
lovely.
yeah, it's very special for this time to be able to have that.
We're very lucky.
Yeah. Yes, you seem to be very happy too, which is beautiful. What keeps the fire burning within you and keeps you going, do you think?
Oh gosh, Francis, that's a lovely question to ask. Honestly, it really, I mean that. It's thoughtful for you to ask that. It's curiosity. It's just, I have this, I think any creative person does. Certainly, all of my peers in the industry, we all have this strong curiosity about design and tomorrow. What can we do today that'll make tomorrow um, a more interesting experience? Or I think if we can if we as a firm can create and contribute to making people's lives more enriching and experiential. I love a sunset. I love looking at the sky and the ocean. I'm a huge ocean person. I
Me
love the
too.
water.
Me too.
I really do. But I would say following the arts and being inspired by. I love New York for that. I've lived all my life in New York City. I was born in Detroit, but we moved here when I was kind of about 4 or 5 years old, and the energy of the city is something I would miss. I'm not sure I could really, as much as I love it, visiting LA or various other cities. Perhaps I could live in London or Paris for a year or two, but for sure. But I love
Twist
New
my
York.
arm.
Yeah, right, right. I loved Hong Kong. That's a great city.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe it's a little different today, but it's
Everything's a little
really,
different today, Jeffrey.
yeah, I think it is. It's just being influenced so much by the creativity of the art world. Um, I love looking at new artists and emerging young artists.
Mm-hmm.
New York City is so full of them. Apparel design. I mean, fashion design is so inspiring to me. Um, I get influenced from all sorts of certainly when I was traveling. I'm not traveling nearly as much. None of us are right now, but
Right.
I did travel quite a bit. We have projects in the Middle East going on. We have projects in Asia and in Seoul and in China, and so I've certainly had the opportunity to, in those travels, just be invigorated and experience a different point of view. Different cultures have such different points of view,
They
and
really do,
culinarily,
don't they? And
even
that is what makes life so rich. It's the fabric of life is these different cultures and their cuisines and
yeah,
their
yeah.
beliefs and their priorities and their way of approaching religion or no religion. It's just the biggest gift, I think,
It
for people.
absolutely. The culinary variety
Oh,
is so
so beautiful.
inspiring. It's just
Hmm.
inspiring, and it makes me want to celebrate that and celebrate family life, celebrate people. I think that's what's so challenging right now, and we will of course get through that. This will pass, but I really miss the social dynamic of being, with people and enjoying. But we have lots of different ways of dealing with that. We've been thinking quite a bit about, social distancing today and how to achieve that. And glass is a material that can be very, very effective. Uh,
Yes.
it'll allow, like, I've thought about designing a restaurant now where the kitchen, I still open kitchens, I think are probably even more important,
100%.
even in, every which way. Certainly in a home, in a residential, I feel very strongly about that. But in restaurants, it's sort of like now the theater in the round, or, it's not really about the crowded sort of density of
No.
the people. It's about what's happening in the kitchen, what's happening culinarily and with the chef.
Correct. What grounds and feeds the home? 100%. How would you say? Uh, how would you say 108 Leonard was set apart for you as a residence in New York, as from an architectural design perspective, from some of your
Oh,
other projects?
oh well, it's just such a unique property. I mean, the it's such an incredibly important landmark and a very impressive piece of architecture by McKim Mead and White. The detail of the facade, the detail on the exterior of the building is just extraordinary. It's extraordinary, and to be honest, Francis, it's certainly very different from a tower, from
Well, that's
one.
why I asked it, because one West End is a ground up new construction, and then you've got the
Yeah,
total antithesis, which is sort of this pre-war conversion from 1890s. It's sort of like, wow, the whole underpinnings is a whole different animal.
it's a whole different animal. In fact, we just finished another one, 277 Fifth Avenue, which was a
Congratulations.
tower. Thank you. Yeah, no, I worked with Raphael Vignoli on that. He's just such a wonderful, wonderful man and super talented architect. But that one I'm proud of. But it's a tower, and so 108. To be honest, it's like designing 100 individual interiors. Residential homes. Each one, there's not one floor plate really that is the same. Not one
I
unit.
know, 167 apartments, and every one of them is not cookie cutter.
Every one of them is different. So
Trust me, I know. I had
I
to
know,
remember them.
right? And as an architect, as an interior design firm, we had to draw
Oof.
each one of them as if they were an individual home. And in some ways, I really enjoyed that. It's certainly time consuming and it takes a lot of hours to do that, but it's a very unique opportunity to bring out the
Hmm.
best in proportion and scale and ceiling height. We had the opportunity at 108 to really make each unit special in its own
Hmm.
in its
Hmm.
own way, and that doesn't come along very often at all.
No,
In fact, it's probably the most unique project I've really ever worked on in many residential projects.
really.
For sure. Residential, absolutely. And very satisfying in that I think the result yields, you know, all the units are attractive and well proportioned and well thought out.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
they're well planned.
Can you speak a little bit more about the inspiration behind that? Because that was a pretty ominous job, that lobby. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
double height ceiling with two major staircases, like out of an Italian Renaissance ball. And then you have to somehow meld modernity in an effortless way that isn't jarring.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, it really, Francis, came down to sort of with a philosophy of embracing the historic details and enhancing them, with a modern insertion that we really it's the landmark sort of classically designed marble walls and dramatic. We try to create a dramatic, symmetrical marble, the staircase and celebrate that um, proportion and design correction. But then with juxtaposed with modern insertions, like a custom hand embossed metal reception desk, and
Yes,
we
I love that. The egg, I call it.
yeah, the egg is just great, and we hand custom embossed that. I had an artist do that who was amazing, and then with the floor to ceiling cast glass accent wall features that are backlit, and
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
fascination with glass. I thought that was a modern sort of emotional modern, but respectful. That it
It
was
is
something that
respectful.
it would
Yes.
it would fit. It's not. I'm not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole kind of thing for sure. And the cabinetry. They sort of the modern is a modern cabinetry in the mailroom, but it sits
Mm-hmm.
a classic marble shell. So there's this kind of contrasting, purposeful contrast of
Mm-hmm.
old and new, modern and historic, if you will. But I think the lobby offers the first impression for residents that it provides a foundation for our design, really for the whole building. And I think it's really the ethos that does follow through in each unit's design. It's this again sort of a modern point of view for kitchens and baths and the flooring in the units, but then the attention to applied trim and um, moldings and trim that really are respectful of
They
the building.
really were. I mean, they probably are what, in many circumstances, wowed the consumer. People would walk in and often say, "I love these, these moldings. They really make me feel like I'm in a different space." And I think the sensitivity to that is what differentiates products that do extremely well and products that get shopped against other product.
I
So,
agree.
testament
Well,
to your eye.
thank you, Francis. Thank you for saying that. It was a very purposeful thing, and I'm very happy to hear that buyers say that,
It's
and
really true.
I think it was a successful, thoughtful way of approaching the building design.
It was such a great mix of artists, you and a lot. It was the perfect mix. It really was. It was incredible to watch your diversity between One West End and 108.
Thank you a lot. I mean, those
They're
guys are
just
wonderful.
pleasure. I
We have a
know.
wonderful working relationship with Alad and cherish it very much.
Yes, we do too. If you weren't an architect and weren't in architecture and design, what would you have done, Jeffrey?
Wow, that's an interesting one, Francis. I am very sort of detailed, and I'm very detailed, and I actually thought about I'd probably be a surgeon. Um,
Are you
uh,
serious? That's amazing. What
yeah,
kind of surgeon?
well, I think I would really be interested in the detail and the challenge of the technical prowess involved and the precision involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think there are moments where, one as a surgeon, an accomplished surgeon, you would have to take it upon. I'm not going to call it a risk, but you have to use your from way deep down in a judgment
Mm-hmm.
call, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just sort of interesting to me the process and the exploration of it, how deep an exploration it would be. I've also thought about I would love to have been a movie director. I would have loved to have been a director.
Mm-hmm.
I think movie making is amazing. I've watched Martin Scorsese and Spielberg, all the great directors out there, and it's just what an amazing opportunity to work with so many different people and bring their talents together. That's kind of how how the studio works. JBI is just we're blessed with many multiply talented folks, and they come from different points of view. I welcome everybody's thoughts and everybody's ideas. As we say in the studio, there's never really a bad idea. There's never a bad idea. It's just whether it's appropriate or not for a certain project. I encourage everybody to speak up. I think the other thing, when I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut, but I don't know. I don't know about that one anymore.
It's an interesting possibility these days.
Yeah, I would say being a captain of a ship, and back in the day when you crossed the ocean, that would have been a very interesting thing to consider. But a surgeon is what came to my mind first.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I'm
I don't
glad you
know.
got to do these buildings first.
Well, yeah, you are surgically going into them. You really are. You got to go in there and figure out really what needs to be done and how the best way to do it. And um,
Yeah, it's
today,
true.
cost efficiently and time efficiently, and we're all challenged by time um, but beauty. I mean, it has to, at the end of the day, for me, it's got to be beautiful. It's probably more the thing that drives me the most is trying to create beautiful spaces that are memorable, that people will remember. That people could say, "Boy, do you remember that time we had dinner at that restaurant?" Or, "Do you remember that
Mhm.
hotel that that it's an indelible memory." And I think
So important.
we
So
all,
important.
as hospitality or certainly hotel design architects, have that responsibility to create a memorable experience, an authentic experience.
I love that. And you have done that.
Thank you. Thank you.
In your opinion, what are New York City's top 10 most iconic landmarks? You cannot say 108.
Well, okay, I would say 108, but you just told me I can't. But
Right.
of course, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not alone in any of this thinking. For a New Yorker, ever since I was 4 or 5 years old, the Empire State Building is the Empire
Of
State Building.
course.
It
Of
just
course.
it stands still as the iconic New York. It's just the icon of New York. I think the Flatiron Building, somewhat similarly,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
it's just an extremely New York unique building, and as well
So
as, of course, the
beautiful.
Chrysler Building. I mean, how can you not think of the Chrysler Building and with all three of with those two? The Guggenheim to me is just a
Yes.
classic. I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright just put his signature right on Fifth Avenue in New York.
So did.
Such a New York
Mm-hmm.
thing. To be honest with you, I miss the old Four Seasons
Me
restaurant.
too. Me
That was
too. That was such
probably,
quintessential old New York. I loved it.
yeah. I mean, I just loved it. I'm not that they've done anything different. It landmarked, of course, and it can't. It still is what it is. But I kind of grew up in that stunning New York space.
Yeah.
The Grill Row.
Yeah.
It really was. But Central Park. I think Central Park is one of the most unique parks I've ever seen in the world. I honestly, I was blessed to have I had a golden retriever for about 10 years, and I lost him about a year ago, but I
I'm
would take
sorry.
him for walks in Central Park. They have this program before 9 a.m. They can be off leash.
Yes, I used to have an Akita and we used to let him off. Yeah.
I love
Mm-hmm.
it. I love it. Exactly. I would literally, on the weekends, we'd have
Yep.
a dog walker, or my wife would during the week, of course. But Saturday and Sunday, I would spend 2-3 hours with him, just
Beautiful.
all over Central Park, all up
Mm-hmm.
north, and it's just such a unique. It's a very unique thing, I think.
You seem to have found balance between work and family life. Is that something that was deliberate or something that was never an issue because you were very clear on your boundaries from the onset?
I think it was very clear. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
very clear, Francis. I work hard. I work very hard. I love my work. I actually love working, but I also play hard. I enjoy
Yep.
my family. I enjoy my family immensely. My two sons and I spend time on the water, boating and fishing, and we'll just go all around the East End from Block Island to. We spend a lot of time as a family together out east, and cooking. We all enjoy cooking tremendously. I'm a big love to cook. I just
Me
love
too.
it.
I love it. Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? It's wonderful.
It's the most wonderful way to love your family, to give back
Yeah,
and connect them all. I know.
it really is. And my sons seem to have picked it up. My older son certainly has.
That's
Justin.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
It's never been an issue. It's always been a wonderful balance of family time and work time. And my other family, my work family, is the studio. JBI
Mm-hmm.
is it's an
Mm-hmm.
amazing group of people. I've been lucky enough to been surrounded by folks for 20 years, 15, 20 years.
It's
Many
incredible.
of my colleagues have been with me, and it really is my other family, my
That's
extended
just
family.
very impressive, Jeffrey. Very
Thank you.
impressive.
It's
And
lovely.
final question for you.
Sure.
What is your greatest vice?
Oh boy. Oh dear. I mean,
Well, you said you like to play hard. Come
well,
on.
besides red wine, I mean, I am a red wine lover. That's for sure.
A little lynch barge? Okay, got it.
A little lynch barge. That'll do it, Francis. And you can keep going from there.
Yeah.
I think we may need to one day soon. I hope
Have a
be able to
glass?
share a glass.
Would love that.
I would really enjoy that very much, Francis. I would. But I'm probably I am. I've been told I'm a junkie when it comes to magazines. You know,
Which ones? Own
I
It?
all of them.
Is it US Weekly, or what is it? What are those magazines in the grocery shops?
Yeah,
Us
no,
Weekly?
no. Well, yeah, every now and then I'll do that, especially at an airport. You know, if I'm in the Hudson News in the airport.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'll be I'll linger around that magazine rack for quite a while, and you know, it's not a, but I'll read every magazine I can find. I just love seeing, you know, from all kinds of boating magazines to art magazines, design magazines. Yes, you know, social society magazines or whatever. But I think
Elvis is back. You know, he was seen
yes,
at
right.
Trader Joe's.
Right, right. I mean, it's got to be
Oh,
98% of it is just made up. But
it's so funny.
no,
Oh,
it's entertaining. It's somewhat entertaining. It takes my mind off of something. But
sitting with you today has made me feel really good inside, meaning your joie de vivre, as you say, your joy or your happy place, and being able to express yourself both within your family world and in your professional world. It's so apparent to me in this interview how everything is sort of connected. You are so incredibly passionate and content in your world, and it flows and outflows to everything that you do.
uh,
And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that today with me.
oh, well,
What a treat for me.
it's my pleasure, and very kind of you to say that, Francis.
It's
It's been
true.
my pleasure. I've enjoyed this very much. You're just lovely to speak with. Your questions were thought provoking and flattering, and thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you today.
Thank you for coming on and thank you for your generosity.
Well,
We wish you much luck and good luck with the rest of this pandemic process. I'm sure
yeah.
you will not be slowed down by any means.
Well, I hope not, and I wish you also. Please be safe, be well, be healthy, take care of your family, and you know we'll get through it. But I wish you the same, Francis. Thank you
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you.